Welcome back to the 815 Exchange. I am your host, Chris Crenshaw, and we are live once again from the 336 for episode 46 of the 815 Exchange. And well, ladies and gentlemen, it's another stacked episode, and I'm not going to lie to you. Once again, I find myself recording this at about 6 something in the morning, 6:32 to be exact. So I'm a little bit tired. So if I'm off for probably the first half of this podcast, I apologize. But here we are, 6 o'clock in the morning, getting the 46th episode of the 815 Exchange in. I can't even lie to you. I had a great week last week. I had a phenomenal week last week. So maybe the 6 o'clock thing is a good, some good juju, Once again, I'm here, tired. But this time I'm around with a little bit more clout. I caught a baseball at the High Point Rockers game. Shout out to the High Point Rockers. What else? I made Chancellor's List. I didn't even know there was a Chancellor's List. What else? Some other stuff I probably can't say on camera. But it was a good week. Can't lie to you. It was a good week. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, it's a very, very stacked episode. Don't want to waste too much of your time. Of course, as always, remember to like, share, and subscribe if you are enjoying the content. And if you want to help a broke college student get closer to not being a broke college student, feel free to do all of that. My social media links, of course, as always, are in the description. So, if you want to follow me on TikTok, where a whole lot of people and a whole lot of you have followed me. If you want to follow me on Twitter, whatever it is, all my social media links are in the description. And as always, timestamps also in the description. Long form content. Some of y'all may not be feeling some of the segments. Y'all want to go watch NBA. For example, NBA and At the Buzzer are making, At the Buzzer really, NBA we talk about every week, but At the Buzzer is back this week, so that means NBA is the last major subject before the Roundup. So if you want to skip to that, timestamps are in the description. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let us begin. And we're going to start off with, which one should we start off with? We're going to start off with the Euros. I was going to start off with combat sports, but we'll do that after. So we're going to start off with the European Championships in soccer, because it's gotten very, very, very interesting. And in fact, because of Group B and Group C playing, some of the results I talk about here will have already happened by the time this podcast is out, because it'll happen while I'm editing. But let's talk about what's happened so far up to this point. Italy and Wales make it out of Group A. Italy's defense has looked absolutely phenomenal. Phenomenal so far. Of course, they got Gianluigi Donnarumma, who many believe was one of the best young players in the world the past couple of years, and now certainly has developed and evolved at AC Milan. Even though I've heard a lot of stuff about him going to PSG, something about he's got a medical for PSG, I think, yesterday. So we'll see what happens there. Donnarumma to PSG, that'd be a huge pickup for PSG. Even though Navas wasn't bad. Navas was actually good. Donnarumma, of course, that'd be kind of crazy. They have the best young player, Mbappe, the best young goalkeeper, Donnarumma. That'd be very, very interesting. But, he's developed into a superstar for sure. But yeah, Italy's defense has been on point. Classic Italy. Wales missed some opportunities here to maybe, strike something, especially in the Italy game. But they make it out of Group A. Group B, Belgium. Big Rom. What's more to say? KDB, Big Rom. You know what it is. Belgium, they already through, so they don't have to worry about what happens today. However, they face Finland, and Finland does need to win to get in. Denmark is out of it. They face Russia. Russia and Finland. It's going to be interesting. Of course, I think this bodes better for Russia. Even though Belgium has nothing to play for, they still, I don't think they're just going to lay down. If you know what I mean. I wouldn't expect them to just kind of lay down for Finland. So I would expect Russia to win. We'll see. Of course, you'll know by now. By the time this is out, by the time you're watching this, you will know who made it out of Group B. But I predict Russia. I think that's who gets through. Group C, pretty much a similar situation. Netherlands is through. They have to face Ukraine today. And Austria. Oh, wait, excuse me. Take that back. Netherlands through. I forget. I think they play Macedonia. But Ukraine and Austria have to play each other for second. So that's, a perfect matchup. I'm definitely going to try to catch that one. High stakes matchup. High stakes matchup. Of course, Austria's Alaba. Ukraine's got a flurry of players that you could talk about. Zinchenko, of course, Man City fullback. And of course, they've gotten to this point, playing for second, and probably what they were expected. So it's going to be a very interesting game. Very interesting game. Probably going to be a very intense game. Those two playing for second to see who makes it out of Group C alongside the Netherlands. Group D, we got the Czech Republic sitting at 4. They're facing England, who are also sitting at 4. Then you have Croatia and Scotland facing off with each other. They're both at 1, which means you have a bevy, an absolute bevy of scenarios that could possibly happen here. I mean, especially when you bring in goal differential and all the stuff that could happen here. England, shock result. Shock result versus Scotland. First time on English soil in, I forget, possibly ever. It's either ever or it was like 50 plus years that they drew with Scotland. They didn't win outright against Scotland on English soil, so that was a big thing. Some questionable moves from Southgate. Jadon Sancho has to be more involved, you would think. Especially with how highly he's regarded and the season he had. A little bit weird to see him not get more playing time, so we'll see what goes on there. They have to beat the Czech Republic. Do not want to leave your fate up to whatever happens with Croatia, Scotland. So that's going to be a very, very interesting match day 3 in Group D. Group what is this? E. We got Sweden. This is one of my absolute shock. Group E has been one of my shock groups so far of the Euros. I don't think anybody expected the table to look like this. I mean, Sweden sitting here with 4. They're taking on Poland, who has 1. They have 1 point. Lua got him a goal last game. Got him a goal last game against Spain. Barely. I mean, they're just eking through. I think they're dealing with some defensive problems, if I'm being honest, with Poland. And it's had an effect so far. They're taking on Sweden, who's got 4 points. Slovakia, who is second in the table, has 3. They take on Spain, and it's Spain has to win. This is a must-win game for Spain. Who would have thought that mighty Spain, who 10 years ago ran Europe under the guise of Andres Iniesta, Xavi, Sergio Ramos, Piqué, Puyol, Fernando Torres, David Villa, ran Europe. Absolutely ran Europe. But here they are in the Euros here, probably the favorite to make it out of this group. And they sit in a game against Slovakia in which they must win. They cannot draw like they've done their first 2 games, which sits them here at 2 points. They must beat Slovakia if they want to advance. Slovakia really just needs to get a point out of that, depending on that Sweden and Poland result. Sweden really needs about a point. Poland has to win. So again, another group where it's gotten very interesting, and there's a lot of scenarios and different things that can happen. But ladies and gentlemen, there is no other group. There is no other group that has been like the group of death. Yes, somehow, some way, one group drew France, Portugal, and Germany. So here we are. Cristiano Ronaldo, Kylian Mbappe, and whichever German superstar you want to point out, Toni Kroos maybe, all sit here fighting for their life at the European Championships because Hungary has simply just decided to not lay down. They did not lay down for France and picked up a massive draw at home. A massive draw. France, too many missed opportunities, a defensive mistake. You don't see it a lot from France, but it happened. A defensive mistake. Hungary made the most of it. Congratulations. Mbappe with a little bit of magic, but then Greece, of course, he's Mr. Euros. He just makes it happen. And here we are. Here we are. France will have to take on Portugal on match day 3. So a guy who many consider possibly the greatest of all time in Cristiano Ronaldo, and one of the two guys, obviously, that have defined this past era, now take on in the Euros if they want to defend their title. The reigning World Cup champions and the team that has the guy that many have tabbed as the future best player and a future all-time great in Kylian Mbappe. Doesn't really get much bigger than that in the group stage, if I'm being honest, between France and Portugal. Both of those teams needing a result. France, you don't really want to leave it up to a draw. You need a win. Portugal, same thing. Don't really want to leave this to a draw and have to worry about what happens in Germany-Hungary. You want to win. So that's going to be a very interesting matchup. Should be a very, very good matchup and probably one of the best matches we see in the group stage. And, of course, it's going to be one of the last matches of the group stage. Germany and Hungary. Hungary has got something to play for, so it's going to be interesting. And if they play Germany the way that they played France, it's possible. I think it's very, very possible that they can make something happen. So that's going to be another interesting one to look out for. Germany played much better last game, but wasn't perfect. Wasn't perfect at all. But they pretty much dominate Portugal, and that sets up the scenario we have here. It's going to be interesting. I can't even really predict this one. It's too close to call. It's too close to call, but as a neutral fan, it's going to be an absolute treat to see what happens in Group F in the Euros on match day 3. But that is the Euros so far. Of course, we'll see some of what happens today and see how that changes it. But it's been a very good Euros tournament so far. There's been a whole lot of own goals. I have to say, there has been an absolute ridiculous amount of own goals. But nonetheless, still been a great, great tournament and should be continuing to be a great, great tournament with some possible surprises popping up here in the next couple of days. Now to head over quickly to combat sports. Yes, the fight game. We had some stuff going on. Even though my headliner, what I talked about last week, which was Teofimo Lopez and George Kambosos, as we all know, or as you should know by now, that fight didn't happen this week. Didn't happen. Tio caught COVID, so that's been pushed back. However, there was still plenty of combat sports and plenty to talk about in the fight game. Of course, next week before I start, we got Tank Davis taking on Mario Barros, which should be interesting. Should be interesting. Him stepping up to 140. Should be interesting. Of course, we want to see him at 135 with the rest of those lightweights, but Tank's going to do what Tank does. We'll see how he handles it. It could be a test. It could be a test. And what makes me say that is what I saw Jermall Charlo go through against Juan Montel. Even though Charlo gets the UD and probably won very handily, that was an absolute war. That was an absolute war. They were just sitting in the pocket, just back and forth. Montel was a zombie. We're talking about a lot of zombies in this combat sports segment. But Montel was an absolute zombie. He would not die. He would not fall. No matter what Charlo hit him with. He made Charlo look pillow-fisted. And by no means is Jermall Charlo pillow-fisted. Montel with a ridiculous chin. And after the fight, Charlo, of course, called out Canelo. But after watching this fight, I simply just do not think Charlo beats Canelo. At least not yet. Maybe he just needs to show me something more. I don't think, with all due respect, not that, Charlo's not a top-level fighter. He is. I just don't see him beating the pound-for-pound king. I don't see it. I think some of those shots Montel was able to get on Charlo, I think Canelo could put his lights out. So I think I would like to see Charlo take out one of those other 160 guys, one of those other 160 titles, which makes a lot of sense in my opinion. If he wants to set up that Canelo fight, I think fighting a guy like Triple G, who Canelo's fought, we've seen that war, see how that goes. If he can beat a Triple G, or Boo Boo Andrade wanted to call out Canelo, showed up to the press conference. If he wants to set up something, both of those guys both fought Canelo, why not fight each other? Whoever wins between Charlo and Andrade, then you have a legitimate case for, hey, Canelo, you handle Caleb Plant, I handle this guy, let's make it happen afterwards. I think that would be the way to go if I was a booker, if I was a promoter, personally speaking. But nonetheless, congrats to Charlo. Big Charlo gets the win. Let's see. The monster. Naoya Inoue, the monster. Nobody else at bantamweight can hit like Inoue. And we haven't seen anybody really in these lower weight classes really hit like Inoue, possibly ever in the sport. He took on Desmaris. He took him out with a body shot, liver shot, KO round 3. His body work was phenomenal. It was phenomenal, an absolutely phenomenal. It looks like he's setting up a rematch against Nonito Donaire, who of course is facing the other champion at 118, and John Rio Casimiro. He's stepping in. So the winner of that's going to hold all the belts, the other 2 belts. So we could get an undisputed champion at 118 and a rematch if Donaire wins of 2018 or 2019's match of the year. So I think that'd be very interesting. I'd be interested in Inoue, Donaire too. I think everybody in the sport would be. Moving on, if we get some exhibition action here, ladies and gentlemen, Anderson Silva beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Yes, you read that correctly. You heard that correctly. Anderson Silva beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. in boxing, not an MMA fight, in boxing, and looked really good. Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. might disown Chavez Jr. at this point and adopt Canelo. It looked like he wanted to. Canelo was at the fight. He was all, father, son. It seemed with, Chavez Sr. So Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. continues his fall and descent from grace. It's just been ugly to watch. Nonetheless, moving on to the UFC, we did have UFC Vegas, I think like 29 or something. Korean Zombie versus Dan Ige. KZ gets it done. UD. Yeah, UD. Pretty, very, very good fight. Korean Zombie showed a lot of that veteran presence. Got it done. Very impressive stuff. Shout out to the Zombie. Also, special shout out before I end here as I'm running out of time. Sung Woo Choi looked very, very good for 145. Heavy-handed. Shown a lot of improvement. Young guy putting on for South Korea. So, hey, big week in Korean mixed martial arts. Both of those guys putting on. Zombie, I think he should get the winner of Volk Ortega, get that title shot. I think he's earned it. He deserves it. Let's make it happen, Uncle Dana. Next on the docket, ladies and gentlemen, we have a journey over to Hockey Land, where the conference finals are underway. And after these past 2 game 4s, it's getting very, 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 very interesting. The Islanders get it done 3-2 over the Lightning. Josh Bailey, Martin, Barzell, Bailey and Barzell, excuse me. Not that Martin's been fine. But Bailey and Barzell have been probably the 2 headliners for the Islanders along with Varley. They've been showing out. They've been showing out in the playoffs for the Islanders. And this Islanders team continues to impress. Every time. I said this last week. I was like, I'm not sure if I should doubt the Islanders. I'm not sure if, even with as good as this Lightning team and the fact that they're defending champions, I don't know if I should be doubting this Islanders team again. It might come back to bite me. And it might come back to bite me. As the series is 2-2 after this Islanders win, it's looking like it's going to be a very good series. Both of these series, just to, spoil it ahead of time, are tied up 2-2. Both series. Both series looking like they could go 6, maybe 7 games. It's going to be a very, very exciting conclusion. Very evenly matched teams, it feels. Just off of how they're playing. So, shout out to all 4 of these teams for how they're playing. Islanders, we'll see. It's a battle back and forth. Varley, Barzell, Bailey, like I said, they've been magic. But we all know what the Lightning have. We all know what they're capable of. They were up 2-1 in this series, so, you know, can't rule them out. Can't automatically jump on that Islanders bandwagon because we know what the Tampa Bay Lightning are capable of. We got this Vegas and Montreal series, which actually might be the more interesting series at the moment, just because of what's gone on in terms of drama. Let's call it drama. Nick Roy in overtime with a big goal for Vegas to help tie the series up 2-2. Montreal really had the momentum, especially after some suspicious, what I'm going to call some very suspicious activity in terms of reffing here, or umping or reffing, whatever, officiating. Some very suspicious officiating going on in this series. Vegas has gotten a very lenient call. How should I say this? There hasn't really been any penalties called on Vegas in this series, or really in the past 6-7 games. It's kind of like, come on, like it's darn near kind of like, is the NHL trying to, because Vegas, new big city. I mean, everybody's trying to tap into the Vegas market, it seems. Vegas is probably one of the hottest cities in terms of growth, I would say, in the past couple of years, in terms of just eyes. So it's like, is the NHL trying to get that team into the finals so they can get there and play off of that media market? Because like the worst one was that high stick on Corey Perry. Dude, clearly high stick, busted open. Don't know how it wasn't called. Do not understand why or how that wasn't called. It was very clear. Very clear as day high stick. But for whatever reason, was not called. So, we'll see what happens. That was in game 2. Montreal still won that game. Montreal playing a little angry, but Cole Caulfield, those young guys, Kokiemi, hey, they playing with a chip on their shoulder. And, of course, they got Carey Price back there at goalie. So, anything is possible. A lot of great goalkeeper play. A lot of great goalie play, in the conference finals here. So, should be interesting. Both series tied up 2-2. Now to move over to the entertainment spectrum, which is TV and music. No movies, even though Black Widow not too far away, and I'm pretty sure Furious 9 is coming out very soon as well. At least, domestically. I know it's already out internationally, like I said last week. But Loki episode 2, Loki continues. Listen, Marvel, they don't miss. They really don't miss. And certainly not in 2021. And Loki had another superb episode to follow up what was a great and intriguing episode 1. Episode 2 had even more surprises, with us finally seeing what many suspected, and correctly suspected, was a female Loki. Yes, female Loki showed up and she caused havoc. And you could say she opened up a multiverse of madness. But as we got that Doctor Strange movie, and this is what might lead up to it, as it's been hinted by Kevin Feige. She absolutely exploded. Demolished the timeline. Barry Allen wishes that he could ruin the timeline like Lady Loki has ruined the timeline. That was an insane amount of branching arcs. So we'll see how the rest of the 4 episodes explore what happens there. Loki went on the run too, so Mobius now has to chase Loki. It's just a big old chase now, a chase through time. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see how much of time gets fixed, or if any gets fixed. What different scenarios we'll see. Does this mean we're gonna get to see some cameos here in Loki? So it's a lot to look forward to, especially here in episode 3, to see what happens, see more about Lady Loki, why she's doing what she's doing, what Loki and Mobius' relationship continues to evolve into, and how he handles that. It was a very good episode too, though. So shout out to the showrunners over there at Loki. In music, we had a couple singles, and we had Yugyeom drop his album. I'll talk about that after I talk about Drugs and Hella Melodies by Don Toliver, who is off to a very hot start here in 2021. But what would you expect? Of course, I loved Hell and Heaven. Hell and Heaven? His album last year, it was fire. It was absolutely fire. I loved it. Cardigan. After Party, those were in rotation for a while. I'm not gonna lie to you. They were in rotation for a while. And it looks like he's got a great one coming up so far with the way he's rolled it out. I guess he's with Kali Uchis. I tweeted out I've never wanted to be Don Toliver so bad, and if that's true, I have never in my life wanted to be Don Toliver so bad. So shout out to Don for getting it done musically, and it seems romantically, because Kali Uchis is fine, so fine. But yeah, Drugs and Hell Melodies, very good song. Highly recommend it. Haven't listened to it already, go ahead and do that. Yugyeom dropped Point of View U, his album, highly anticipated album, his first after signing with AMG. I'm not gonna lie, out of GOT7, Yugyeom was not one of the members that really, I mean, he caught my eye, but he wasn't like one of those guys I was like, okay, not like, I guess, a Jackson or a JB, right? Not one of those guys. Even Bam Bam, right? Not one of those guys that really made me think, okay, I wonder what his solo material was like. And maybe it's because I wasn't like a massive GOT7 fan, so to speak, right? But he made me a fan. He made me a fan with this album. Fire. Just, it was very, 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 very good. I'm not going to give an official rating on it, but it was a very, very good album. As expected with an artist going to AMG. And shout out to Gray, his producer, even though Yugyeom wrote and produced alongside with Gray on pretty much all of these tracks. It gave us the R&B vibes. It gave me the R&B vibes that I wanted. It delivered. It delivered. Yugyeom delivered, so shout out to the boy. Very excited to see, how it's received. It's been very well received so far. Very excited to see how the rest of his music. He was the Makane in GOT7, so plenty of time for him to really make an impact here in the music scene. So very excited for him. Very good stuff so far. And okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for me to talk about, once again, for a second week, shout out to all my track people out there. Once again, for a second week, you get a segment on the 8:15 exchange. Yes, we're going to run it back one more time. One more time. We're going to run back the track and field segment, because we have the U.S. Olympic Trials. And it's been a very, very interesting start so far. We got plenty of people that have qualified, and I have the list right here. And of course, we're going to start off with probably the big news. You've probably seen it all over social media. Sha'Carri Richardson is an absolute monster. I mean, an absolute monster. She is the future. She is the undisputed future of the women's 100. And seeing how she probably runs in the women's 200, probably the future of the women's 200, probably just the future of women's sprinting in general. Sha'Carri is a beast. She is a beast. Dominant. She was dominant this weekend, and in fine form. Rest in peace to her mother, who she lost this past week as well. For her to come out and perform like that, I mean, that took a lot of guts, and yeah, she's the best. Clearly the best. She's going to contend for a gold medal at Tokyo. Joining her was Javane Oliver and Tiana Daniels on that women's 100-meter team. We also have qualifying for the relays Jenna Prandini, Gabby Thomas, who, even though known more for her 200 exports, did a very good job in the 100. Almost got called for a false start, but it turns out it wasn't her. It was Aaliyah Hobbs. Then Aaliyah Hobbs's false start got overturned. They put Aaliyah Hobbs in the finals. That was a little bit controversial, but that went down. Elish Garner also qualifies for the relays. So Should be a pretty strong women's 100 group. Sha'Carri, of course, leading the way. In the women's 400, the big news. Allyson Felix makes a 5th. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, a 5th Olympics, which is crazy to think about because this is an event that happens every 4 years. That means she's been doing this for 20 years now. 20 years of making Olympics or performing at Olympics. So, shout out to the GOAT, Allyson Felix. She makes it. Quinera Hayes won the U.S. Olympic Trials for the women's 400. Of course, we had that nice moment at the end with Hayes and Felix's child meeting up. Ended up being a nice little camera shot. Even though NBC, I have to admit, y'all were a little bit wonky on the production. Could have been a little bit better, but y'all did get it done there. Wanda Layton Jonathan's also makes it in the women's 400. Qualifying for relays, we also had Kendall Ellis, Kaylin Whitney, Lena Irby, Taylor Manson, and Shay Anderson all qualify for the relays. So congrats to all of them on becoming Olympians. In the women's 100-meter hurdles, another event where I think we have a very good shot of winning because Kenny Harrison was in peak form, absolute peak form. She missed out on the Olympics 4 years ago, but she was right here where she deserved to be this year. She dominated all weekend. Her and Brianna McNeil. Brianna started off that first heat in the first round. She started off brilliantly. She kind of faded off, towards the end. Did make the team, however, finished second. However, she is appealing a 5-year ban, which is big because it means that she might not make the team. She might not make the team if her ban is upheld. She's going through some stuff right now, so we'll see how that goes for Brianna McNeil. It would be a big loss to not have her. Even though, honestly, I feel like we could cover it, even though McNeil, the reigning Olympic champion, which is why I say it'd be a big loss. But I have to admit, women's 100 meters, it was a good race. We had a lot of very, very viable Olympic candidates. Christina Clemens made it barely, and I mean by 100,000th of a second over Gabby Cunningham, who would be entering the team if McNeil could not make it. And Cockrell finished 5th. McNeil and Cockrell kind of were bumping into her. They were side by side. It looked like Cockrell couldn't really accelerate because McNeil was almost in her lane. That was an interesting thing to look at. But Cockrell will be back, only 23, reigning national champ. So I think she'll be fine. She just turned pro recently. In the discus, Valerie Allman, she advances alongside Rachel Denkoff. Val looked good. She was great all week. Vashti as well, women's high jump. Vashti Cunningham, shout out to Randall. You did good. Vashti making a name for herself, though. She's been one of the premier, if not the premier, American women's high jump contestant. She makes the Olympics after winning here. Women's triple jump, we had Katura Orji, who is the reigning Olympic champion. Tori Franklin, Jazz Moore, all make it there in the women's triple jump. The men's 100 meters. I mean, Trayvon Bromell. I think he's taking it home. I think he's clearly the fastest man in the world, in my opinion. And yeah, he remained undefeated throughout the weekend and won the finals for the men's Olympic 100 meters, advancing to the Olympics. Of course, he was injured 4 years ago at London. Hopefully no injuries, God willing, because he should bring home an Olympic gold that he deserves. Once thought of as the future of Olympic sprinting, had to deal with some injuries, went through a lot. He's back, and he's back in a big way. Ronnie Baker, also, big shout out to Ronnie Baker. He makes it 9.85. Fred Curley, I questioned his decision about not going, with the 400, which is what had been his best event. But he had been running the 100-meter well, very, very, very well this year, which made him a viable contestant to make this team. And he did. He ran pretty much 9.86s, 9.9s all year, and he did it all weekend. He performed. He showed up when it mattered, and he makes his team. Kenny Bednarek also qualified for the relay. Michael Williams, the freshman from Oregon, 60 meters, one of the best starters, I think, in men's 100 meters, right, in the world today. One of the best starters because of how good that 60 meters is. He qualifies for the relay, ran a 9.91. Cravon Gillespie also qualifies. Lyles didn't. Gatlin got hurt, so no Justin Gatlin here at 39. unfortunately. But great career for him. If this is it, Lyles, we need you for the 200, so I'm not too worried about this. Men's 400 meters, Michael Norman. Mike. He hadn't been perfect all weekend. In fact, he didn't even win. Got beat in the first round by Elijah Goodwin, who ended up making, shout out to Georgia, he ended up making for relays. But Michael Norman showed up in fine form for the final and really dominated, if I'm being honest. Michael Cherry, who was impressive all weekend, he finished second. He gave him a little bit of a test, but yeah, Norman showed why he's the guy, showed why he's the headliner. Randolph Ross. What did I tell you about them Aggies, man? What did I tell you about the Aggies last week? Randolph Ross, of course, makes the team at 3 spots. Trev Stewart finished 4th, also of A&T, so shout out to them, Aggie Pride. They get it done. Vernon Norwood, Elijah Goodwin, Bryce Demon, and Will London also all qualify for the relays. 10,000, Woody Kincaid, Grant Fisher, and Joe Klekic. Decathlon, we had Garrett Scantling, Steve Bastian, Zach Zemek seem to all kind of separate and have major moments this weekend. They all qualify for the decathlon. Men's hammer, Rudy Winker, dominant win with an 82.71 meters. Put some distance on Daniel Hall and Alex Young, but they all make the Olympics. And, of course, we had a world record fall in the men's shot put. Ryan Krauser, an absolute beast. Absolute beast. Krauser breaks the world record, 23.37 meters on the shot put. Beat it by 8 inches for my Americans. He beat it by 8 inches in ridiculous stuff. Joe Kovacs also makes it one of his chieftain rivals. Peyton Orthithal also finishes out. And that rounds up everybody that qualified for the Olympics over this past weekend. Got some more stuff, of course, some more events. More stuff to talk about. Sid, Delia, Ating Mew did not run the women's 400, which was an interesting choice. But we got her in the 800 for the women. Of course, we got the 200 for the men's and all that stuff going on. So, plenty to talk about over there. And yeah, we'll talk about it next week. Now, finally, this segment that you've probably been waiting for, or if you have used timestamps that you have skipped for, the one that you are like, sharing, and subscribing for. The NBA. Yes, let's get to it. Terrence Mann, 39 points, helped eliminate the Jazz in Game 6 over this past week. Helped get the Clippers to move on. Of course, I'll quickly talk about this. Jazz just down bad. I mean, not on Spider. He performed. But for whatever reason, this Jazz team just... Even when they were up, I didn't really feel like, okay, this is where they get it done. Even though they've gotten much better, it just seems whatever it is with that combo of players, with Spider, Rudy, whatever it is, it just doesn't feel like it's going to work. I didn't have much belief in them, and it showed out. That was for a reason. They get, reverse gentleman sweep. I guess that's a ultimate gentleman sweep almost. So yeah, they lose 4 straight. Man erupts for 39. Kawhi has no ACL. And that came into effect in the next game. Of course, we had the first game of the Western Conference Finals. The Suns and the Clippers, and the Suns get it done. 120-114 because Devin Booker had a 40-point triple-double in his Western Conference Final debut. Book. That Wet Like I'm Book, Wet Like I'm Lizzie line from Drake has aged exquisitely. It has aged exquisitely. It was a great line back then, but seeing how Liz and Book have played since that line, that lyric has exquisitely aged. And yeah, Book, he just seems to get better. He's really, really making a statement here in this playoffs as one of the premier players in the league. He's making a bid. He's making a bid to really put himself up there with guys. When we talk about the future of the league, Devin Booker probably needs to be mentioned, I'd say. He needs to be mentioned. He needs to be in the conversation. No CP3. CP3 is in COVID protocol. Doesn't matter. It did not matter because Devin Booker was on it. DeAndre Ayton also had some bright moments. PG-13 had 34, of course. Pfizer P reformed. No pandemic P. None of that happening here. Still wasn't enough. Suns were the better team. They get it done. Kawhi and CP3, of course, are going to be the big highlighters here. Kawhi is allegedly gone for the season, even though they've kind of kept it on the hum. The word on the street is that he is out for the season. Of course, that's a huge loss. Phoenix, don't really know. Also, been kept very quiet, very ill. Besides the fact that we know he's out, we don't really know the whole situation with CP3, when he's coming back, if he's coming back. I will say, I'll leave that to the end. I'll leave that till right before at the buzzer, because that kind of ties in with the predictions. So I'll leave that till then. But Phoenix gets it done in game 1 in the Eastern Conference. The IsoGang falls. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my one scenario was, as I talked about last week, I've said it all year, my one scenario in which the IsoGang would not win it all and just murk everybody was injuries. And well, injuries happened, and it led to me last week saying for the first time in a long time, the Nets were in trouble. And well, I was right. The Nets were indeed in trouble. And it took KD doing some near superhuman. I mean, KD was going absolutely ballistic the last 2 games. I mean, ballistic. It was some of the best playoff performances we've seen. Especially Game 6. It took that to keep him in, but it wasn't enough. James Harden laid an egg in Game 7. KD had 48. Got it to overtime with that insane shot at the end of regulation. But his bid for greatness was disrupted by the fact that Giannis had 40, 13, and 5. Even though he still can't make free throws or really do anything outside, I have to put respect on the fact the man still had 40, 13, and 5 on a pretty efficient, basis. So Giannis, of course, not the problem. Does he need to get better? Does he need to develop a shot and make free throws? Is that part of the reason why, even though they're in the Eastern Conference Final, and who I probably think is making the finals out of the East, I'm still not sold on them? Yes, that is all true. Because Chris Middleton had a dud and kind of force-fed himself into a 23, 10, and 6 through overtime. But, touche. Brooklyn. Steve Nash didn't call his finals game. And how do I put this? Simply put, they ran out of gas. KD, through all his greatness this past week in his dominant performance, had a perfect ending to, Game 7 regulation. Unfortunately, his foot was on the line because he has a size 5 billion shoe. His foot's too long. Of course, we have that infamous photo of his leg looking like a hockey stick. Unfortunately, that came back to haunt KD because, foot was too big. He stepped on the line. It was only a 2. But, and I hate to do this because it sounds bad, and I'm not trying to. This isn't KD slander. Dude played phenomenal. KD, I would say you wouldn't watch this, but sometimes you do lurk. And KD, I love you. Arguably, I think at this point, we can say at the very least. Well, not at the very least. You could probably put him at 2 and it'd be justified. But I'd say he's probably 1A. He's definitely put himself back into 1A, 1B with Braun in terms of best player in the world. You could go with either one and I really wouldn't have a problem. I think it's a 1A, 1B situation. But, especially at this stage in Braun's career, with a little bit of uncertainty and seeing how KD just played. Also, congratulations on applying for Tokyo. Hopefully you can get some frustration out there. But KD had to play better. He had to play better in overtime. I get it. He was tired. He was out of gas. He played 50 minutes. He played 54 minutes, I think, in the game total. He was tired. But he absolutely had to be better. The Nets team had to be better in overtime. I think they made one shot in overtime, went like 1 for 8 or whatever. KD, that last shot, the air ball, the infamous now air ball, which sealed the end of the game for the Bucks. He tried to recreate the magic. You're KD, bro. You're one of arguably the greatest scorer to ever live. There's no way you couldn't have gotten a better shot off of that. I mean, there's no way. There's no way. You tried to force it, and you paid for it. So I have to be partial here, and I gotta say, KD should have been better. He had to be better. He was near perfect in this game. Near perfect. And this sounds a bit unfair, but he needed to be better than that if they wanted to advance, and he wasn't. He ran out of gas. And I have to say that because some people, even though it's not fair to hold him to this standard, but people started, wanting to call him and wanted to put him in that GOAT conversation, which has become a two-horse race between Braun and MJ. People wanted to start putting KD in there. So if we hold him to that same candle, he wouldn't be getting universally praised like he is if this was, say, Jordan, right? If Jordan airballed in overtime of Game 7 when he could have won the game, that would have been earmarked on his legacy forever, right? We would not be like, okay, Jordan was also clutch. We'd be like, y'all remember that time in the Eastern Conference Finals when he airballed to win Game 7? Yeah, he had 48, but y'all remember that? And especially if LeBron did this. If LeBron did this, we would never hear the end of this. If LeBron airballed to win the game in Game 7 overtime, oh my goodness. The slander would be through the roof. We would be, the LeBron's not clutch. The LeBron's a bum. Mickey. It would be, oh my god, it would be Hall of Fame levels of slander on Bron if he ever pulled what KD did in overtime. It would be ridiculous. So I first off don't think we need to hold Kevin Durant, even though he's one of the greatest players of all time. Don't get it messed up. I don't think we should really be putting him on, the two greatest players to ever pick up a basketball's standard, because I don't think that's fair on KD. But I am going to hold him accountable here and say he should have been better, even though this loss is by no means on Kevin Durant. It takes a team. This is still a team sport, and his team didn't show up. His team shot, I think somebody said jokingly, like 6 for 83. The rest of the Nets need to show up and help KD out. They didn't. KD did almost all he could. Brandon was on fumes in overtime, and it showed. Shout out to the Bucks, dog. Talked about the Nets. The Bucks got it done. Even though I've said I'm not convinced and I've slandered Milwaukee fans, I know I've slandered y'all all year, and I'm still not, fully invested. But y'all made it here. Y'all are in the Eastern Conference for a reason. You're one of the best. I'm just not completely sold yet. Atlanta, Game 7 last night. They get the win 103-96. Trae Young had 21-10 on 5 for 23. The Sixers blow it up. Blow this team up. Just blow this team up. Doc Rivers looked like he was on his last straw. That man looked depressed. He looked depressed. He looked so depressed. Trae Young shot 5 for 23, and the Hawks won this game. Kevin Huerter also had 27, so shout out to Kevin Huerter. But ain't no reason. Ain't no reason the Hawks should have won this game with Trae shooting 5 for 23. And Embiid also had 31 and 11. You would think this would be an easy Philly win, but that's not what happened. That is not what happened. Ben Simmons, supposed superstar Ben Simmons, classic Ben Simmons. 5 points. 5 points in Game 7. Superstar, number 1 overall pick, Ben Simmons. 5 points. Need I say more? Ben Simmons should be playing with the Shanghai Sharks next year. The Sixers need to get him out of Dodge and just blow this thing up. The process is over. It failed. Okay? Well, I guess it succeeded in bringing them back to relevancy and making them a good team again. They're just not a championship contender. Okay? I've seen enough. Ben Simmons isn't the guy. Embiid, I can't put this on you. You showed up. Could have been better. Not perfect. But this ain't your fault. You had 31 and 11. You did what you're supposed to do. But your second superstar did not do a thing. He didn't do a thing. So, yeah. Pain. Straight pain for y'all. Atlanta moves on. So that brings me to At the Buzzer. Yes, it brings me to At the Buzzer, which is where I'll include my prediction and some of my friends' predictions, for what they think the finals matchup would be. I haven't revealed mine until now, but I think especially, well, I won't say that yet, but I think the Suns make it out of the Western Conference Final. I think the Bucks make it out of the East. I think we're going to get a Suns in Milwaukee Bucks final. That is my prediction. That prediction is shared by my guy Jamal. He also has the Suns and the Bucks in the finals. Let's see here. And also joining me in that Suns-Bucks prediction. Not a lot of us have faith in the Clippers. You know, sorry to the Clippers. Sorry to Ty Lue. Sorry to PG-13. Not too many of us here in the friend group have too much of an expectation on y'all. But, you know, all the respect. You know, good luck. Good luck. You know, good luck. But, yeah, me, Jamal, Zay, all rocking with that Suns versus Bucks finals. That's what we see happening. Will, however, differed. He's got the Clippers. He's rocking with the Clippers. He thinks the Clippers and the Bucks. Again, no faith in the Hawks. No faith in the Hawks. Not a lot of us with much faith in the Hawks, but they've made it here for a reason. You know, who knows? Trey goes nuclear and proves why I'm low on the Bucks, right? You know, it could happen. But Will has the, let's see, yeah. Like I said, he has the Clippers and the Bucks in the finals. He's big supporting PG. He's been talking a lot about how Paul George is the second best player now left in the playoffs. And, yeah, he thinks PG-13 is going to get it done. That very well may happen. I think a lot on that series depends on whether CP3 is able to come back. What's the deal with Kawhi? I think it depends on the health of those teams. This playoffs has been survival of the fittest, to simply put it. It's been survival of the fittest. It's who is the fittest team left. I think that's part of the reason why the Bucks have been able to carry on and are still around. They've just been healthy. Everybody else has been dealing with injuries. The three other teams left here in the conference finals, left here in the playoffs, dealing with injuries to superstars. Trae Young's still playing, but we see him iced up on his shoulder every time he goes to the sideline. Of course, as we've talked about many times now today, CP3 out, Kawhi out. They've been big factors, of course, for those two teams. The Bucks, they've been healthy. And sometimes healthy is all you need. Just being available. L did differ from both of us. He said Hawks in 6, so I guess he has the Hawks beating the Bucks, which, again, I wouldn't be particularly shocked about, even though I have the Bucks winning. I think it's a very viable option. I think that's something could happen. So I would assume Hawks, and I guess I would just go on a whim and say he probably also has the Suns advancing. So Hawks Suns, which I think would be a very exciting finals matchup with Trey and Book dueling. CP3, if he comes back, that's a great point guard matchup. Hawks have been great so far. They also got John Collins putting in big performances, Clint Capella, and of course DeAndre Ayton for the Suns. So I think that'd be a really cool matchup. I would be actually down for that matchup. Probably more down for that matchup than Bucks Suns. Not hating on the Bucks again. Again, it probably looks like I hate the Bucks, but I promise I know it. I'm just not sold on y'all. I'm not sold on Bud. I'm not sold on your team. But, you know, y'all might prove me wrong. Y'all might prove me wrong. I mean, I've been pretty much right this entire playoff so far. But who knows? Maybe I miss. I might miss. You know, I had missed too much here. But maybe I miss here with the Bucks. We'll see. But yeah, that's at the buzzer. And with that concluded, ladies and gentlemen, that means we have reached the Roundup. Yes, we have reached the Roundup. And to start off the Roundup, we're going to start off with some racing here. Kyle Larson is scorching hot, making a bid for best driver on the planet, and certainly the best in NASCAR. He's now won, if you count the All-Star race, 4 straight. 4 straight races. Sonoma, Charlotte, All-Star race in Texas, and now he wins at Nashville. Now Kyle Larson wins at Nashville. Yeah, he's on fire right now, looking like none better. Of course, he's first in the standings, but 4 wins this year. Yeah, he's been dominant. Max Verstappen wins the French Grand Prix over Lewis Hamilton. Passed him with 2 laps to go. Big win for Max. Of course, he's starting to make it kind of interesting here. He's making it interesting in F1. Certainly, it's going to be fun to see how this Lewis and Max battle goes on for the rest of the season. But Max wins France. John Rahm, keeping it with the European flavor here. It's been a very European episode. But John Ram, first Spanish man to ever win. Actually, is that true? Yeah, I think he's Spain's first major winner. Or first to win the U.S. Open. One of those two. But Rahm reclaims the world #1 title and claims the U.S. Open title for himself. Big win there. Great close. He had a great close to end Sunday. And yeah, paid off dividends big time. Bryson DeChambeau fell apart. I mean, a disastrous back nine. Filled with bogeys, double bogeys. I think we even got a triple bogey in there. DeChambeau just completely fell apart. And yeah, Rahm wins the U.S. Open. And like always, this is kind of descending into the Roundup being the MLB section here. So yeah, Vlad and Shohei Ohtani is the big story here. We talk about him pretty much every week. But Shohei Ohtani had 6 home runs. 6. The clear player of the week. I mean, absolutely clear. He also had, I think, 6 scoreless innings, or only gave up 1 run in his 1 start this week. But yeah, 6 home runs. Shohei on absolute fire. Ties the league lead with Vlad with 23. So an interesting scenario here is brewing as who wins AL MVP in this situation, you know? Vlad is threatening for a triple crown. But, you know, can you really give him the MVP over the guy who might hit 50 home runs and have a 2.75 ERA with 174 Ks, which is what Ohtani's on pace for right now? Is you know, a guy that's playing at a high level, hitting and pitching, even though Vlad running for a triple crown, it feels like almost like a co-MVP situation. Both guys looking very worthy right now. But yeah, Vladdy, Shohei, 2 of the best in the sport, and they're showing why. Two you know, fairly young. Shohei's still fairly young. He's 26. Vladdy, of course, one of the best young players in the game. So yeah, very exciting stuff in the MLB. The Yankees turn another triple play. This team is either fantastic, oh my goodness, for the Yankees, was so unbelievable, or oh my dear God, we need a top 10 pick. There's no in between. And here we are at it again. Chapman gets himself into a hole, even though he's been brilliant all year. He gets himself into a hole, and then we get a triple play. I don't know what's up with it. We end this series versus the Athletics with it. Yeah, a second triple day. I think this is the second this week or something like that. It's the third in 31 days, which is the first time in MLB history that's ever happened. But yeah, a third triple play this year for the Yankees. Dope. Wander Franco. Some more bad news for my Yankees fans, you know. I don't understand why all of our divisional rivals have gotten the #1 overall prospect, right? Vlad was the #1 overall prospect. Bo Bichette was also highly regarded. Wander Franco, who's considered one of the best baseball prospects ever, if I'm being honest, frankly. He gets called up for the Rays after they lost 6 straight and just lost to the Mariners. Also had Tyler Glasnow go down. So, yeah, they hit the emergency button and said, yeah, possible generational prospect Wander Franco. It's time. You're up from Durham. And, yeah, now we get to deal with another emerging superstar in the sports. And, you know, you wonder who is the new #1 prospect after Wando, and I would assume that he's probably going to stay in the MLB and, yeah, burn up all his prospect eligibility. Who becomes the #1 prospect after? Who else but Adley Rutschman of the Baltimore Orioles, who's also in the AL East? Why? What did we do? What did we do to deserve this? That every top prospect is in the AL East. How is this fair? How is this fair? How is this fair? I mean, how is this fair? No wonder Garrett Cole needs to use this stuff. We got every generational prospect in baseball in our division. Nonetheless, Wander Franco, as a neutral baseball fan, if I look at this from a neutral view, is very exciting. Of course, one of the highly regarded prospects, you know. of this generation, of recent times. So yeah, very excited to see how he does. And to end off here, the Arizona Diamondbacks are absolutely down bad. Down terrible. Currently on pace to set the all-time MLB away losing streak record. They've lost 17 in a row, just period, including home. 17 losses in a row. Yeah, 17 in a row. Not much to say. Arizona Diamondbacks, I'm so sorry, but you know what? Andrew Jones looks like a fantastic prospect for next year's draft, so maybe all this losing will be worth it. But yeah, this ain't good. This is not good. And in y'all's division, it's not gonna get better. 17 in a row. Yeah, not looking like it's gonna end in sight. Doesn't look like there's an end in sight, but good luck to you. Good luck, Diamondbacks. Yeah, you're gonna need it. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes episode 46. Like I said, absolutely stacked episode. Hope everybody had a great Father's Day and Juneteenth. Last week was a great week for me. Hopefully it was a great week for you. Hopefully this is a great week for me, and hopefully it's a great week for you as well. Again, remember to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed today's episode and you enjoyed the content. Social media links are in the outro as always and in the description if you want to follow me there and see what I'm talking about throughout the week. But yeah, appreciate all the recent love. Numbers have been going through the roof. We're making a lot of moves. I made a lot of moves last week, so you love to see it. A lot of motivation with those moves being made. But that's episode 46. Time to wrap it up. Ocho, signing off.